She handed me her laptop and said, "Just tell me if this sounds desperate." That's how it started. Not with a confession, not with a moment of clarity, just my roommate Mia Sanders sitting cross-legged on the couch in an oversized hoodie, asking me to fix her dating profile like I was a spell checker and not a man who had spent the last 8 months quietly falling for her. My name is Ryan Cole. I'm 29. I fix bikes for a living at a shop downtown. And until that Tuesday night, I thought I was doing a pretty solid job hiding the fact that I'd fallen for the woman who split rent with me. I was wrong. I just didn't know how wrong yet. Mia and I had been roommates for almost 2 years. We found each other through a mutual friend when her old lease fell apart, and my old roommate moved out to live with his girlfriend. It was supposed to be simple. Split the bills, keep the kitchen clean, don't be weird about the bathroom schedule. Instead, it turned into something else. Movie nights that ran until 2 a.m. grocery runs that took an hour because we kept getting distracted arguing about which cereal was a personality flaw. The kind of easy, built-in companionship that sneaks up on you until one day you realize you've started comparing every other person to the one who already lives down the hall. I never said anything. Reasons piled up the way they always do. She'd just gotten out of a relationship with a guy named Colin who ghosted her for 3 weeks before reappearing with a bouquet and an apology that smelled like guilt. She said she wasn't looking for anything serious. I told myself the timing was wrong, that ruining a good living situation over feelings I hadn't confirmed were mutual was a special kind of stupid. So I stayed quiet. I got good at stepping back a foot whenever we stood too close. I got good at laughing at her jokes just enough, not too much. I became an expert at almost. That Tuesday, she'd finally decided to get back into dating. Her friend Priya had been pushing her for weeks, sending her app links with messages like "you deserve someone who shows up," which, fair. So Mia sat there with her laptop open to a half-finished profile, chewing the inside of her cheek the way she did when she was nervous, and said, "Okay, be honest. Rate this bio." I sat down beside her, close enough to smell her shampoo, far enough to pretend that didn't matter. "Read it to me," I said. "I want the full performance." She rolled her eyes, but she read it. "Mia, 27, will fight you over the last slice of pizza, but will also give it to you if you look sad enough. Looking for someone who doesn't take themselves too seriously, but does take Sunday mornings seriously. Bonus points if you can make me laugh at 1 a.m. when I probably should be asleep." I nodded slowly, solid opener. "A little vague, though? You need specifics. Specifics are what make people stop scrolling." She groaned. "Fine, professor. Give me an example." That's the part one should have seen coming. I should have known where this was headed the second she asked me to help build the thing that was supposed to attract someone else. But I didn't. I just leaned over, read the next section she drafted, the one about her ideal person, and felt my stomach drop. "Someone who remembers I take my coffee black except on bad days, when I need 2 sugars and 0 judgment," I read out loud. I looked at her. That's oddly specific. Mia didn't look up from the screen. "Yeah, well, I have a very specific coffee order." "I know your coffee order," I said slowly, "because I make it for you. Every morning." She finally looked at me, and something in her face flickered before she covered it with a shrug. "Coincidence." I kept reading because apparently I hadn't learned my lesson yet. The next line described her perfect Friday night. "Takeout on the floor because we're too lazy to move to the table, terrible reality TV, someone who doesn't make me feel guilty for wanting to stay in instead of going out." I stopped. That wasn't a coincidence anymore. That was last Friday. Word for word. "Mia, what? This is our Friday. This exact Friday. We did this 3 days ago." She grabbed the laptop back like she could physically undo what I'd read. "It's a common scenario, Ryan. Lots of people like takeout." "Sure," I said, "but not everyone specifically writes about coffee orders that are," and I quote, "black except on bad days." Her cheeks went pink, which on Mia was rare enough that I actually cataloged it. She was quick, sharp, the kind of person who talked her way out of parking tickets and into free appetizers. Watching her fumble for an explanation was new territory, and I wasn't ready to let her off easy. "Keep going," I said, nodding at the screen. What else is in there? No, Mia, absolutely not. This proofreading session is over. But it was too late, because I'd already caught the next line before she minimized the window. Bonus if you can fix a bike chain without complaining, but complain anyway because it's funny. I set my jaw. I complain about bike chains constantly. That's not a general trait, Mia. That's an inside joke between the two of us. She stared at the ceiling like it might offer an escape route. Okay, fine. Maybe I've been writing this bio while thinking about specific memories. Specific memories of me. I didn't say that. You basically just did. She closed the laptop, set it on the coffee table like it had personally betrayed her, and pulled her knees up to her chest. For a second, she didn't say anything, and I let the silence sit because pushing felt wrong and backing off felt worse. Finally, she said, quietly, "It's hard to write about what I want when the person I've been comparing everyone to already lives in my apartment." The room went very still. I felt my pulse do something complicated. Say that again. No, Mia. She groaned and dropped her forehead onto her knees. This is humiliating. I'm trying to make a dating profile, and it turns out I accidentally wrote a character study of my roommate. I should have made it easier for her. I didn't. Not right away, because some selfish part of me needed to hear her say it clearly, without an exit built into the sentence. Why didn't you just tell me? She lifted her head, and there was something raw in her expression that she usually kept locked down. Because you never gave me a reason to think it would go anywhere. You're careful, Ryan. Careful like a man guarding something. I figured you just weren't interested, and I wasn't going to make this apartment weird by making it about me. That landed harder than I expected, mostly because it was true, and hearing my own caution described back to me made it impossible to keep hiding behind it. I was careful, I admitted, because you'd just gotten out of something messy with Colin, and I didn't want to be the guy who used a vulnerable moment to make a move. That's not what this would have been. I know that now. She almost smiled, though it was still shaky. So what happens now? Do I delete the profile? Or do you want me to keep it up so you can watch strangers reject the version of me that's secretly just describing our Tuesday nights? I laughed despite the tightness in my chest. Delete it. Bold request from a man who hasn't said anything yet. Fair point. I'd spent months rehearsing what I'd say if this moment ever came, and none of the speeches I'd built survived contact with her actually sitting 3 feet away, waiting. So I skipped the speech. I've been in love with you for probably 5 months, I said. Maybe longer. I just didn't think you'd want the guy who already knows your coffee order and your bad reality shows and your worst Monday moods. Mia's eyes went glassy, though she blinked it back fast, like she wasn't ready to fully let herself believe it yet. That's exactly the guy I want. You could have just told me that in March. You could have told me in February. She shot back, and the laugh that followed cracked the tension wide open. For a second we just sat there, grinning like idiots, the laptop closed between us, her half-finished dating profile still saved in some folder neither of us would ever need again. So, I said eventually, what do we do with the bio? Feels wasteful to just delete character development. She leaned back against the couch cushions, studying me with an expression I hadn't seen from her before, something unguarded. We could keep the coffee line. Feels accurate. And the bike chain complaint? Non-negotiable. I stand by that description. I reached over and closed the laptop the rest of the way myself, setting it on the table like we were closing a chapter on purpose instead of by accident. For the record, I said, if you ever want an honest opinion on a profile again, you should probably write about someone who isn't already doing your dishes. Where's the fun in that? That was the thing about Mia. Even in the middle of an accidental confession, she still had jokes loaded and ready. I reached over and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, mostly because I'd wanted to do that for months and finally had permission. Can I ask you something? Depends. Was there ever a version of tonight where you didn't want me to notice? She considered that for a second, honestly, like she owed me the real answer instead of the easy one. No, she said finally. I think some part of me wrote it knowing you'd catch it. I just needed you to be the one who said something first. Coward's move, I said gently. Historically accurate, she agreed. We didn't kiss that night, not right away. We talked for 2 more hours instead, The kind of conversation that finally says out loud everything two people have been circling for months. The almosts, the close calls, the moment last winter when I'd nearly said something at a Christmas party and lost my nerve. When we finally did kiss, it happened in the kitchen the next morning, while I was making her coffee exactly the way she liked it, black, except it was a rough morning. So I added the 2 sugars without asking. She watched me do it and said, "You really do know my order." Occupational hazard of loving my roommate. Ex-roommate energy, technically. Once the world finds out. Are you deleting the app? Already done. Somewhere out there, a stranger just lost the chance to date a man who fixes bike chains and complains the entire time. Their loss. We got married 2 years later in a backyard, string lights overhead, and Mia's vows included, word for word, a line about coffee orders and bad Mondays. I didn't complain about that one either. So tell me, would you have caught it if your roommate's dating profile was secretly describing you the whole time? And have you ever realized someone's ideal partner description was quietly, accidentally, entirely about you? Tell me in the comments below. If you like this one, hit like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.